What are the important viral respiratory infections? So what are the pathogens? We have rhinovirus, we have the SARS-CoV-2, and we have the non-SARS-CoV-2 coronaviruses. And we're going to separately discuss about the COVID infection. So most of the rhinovirus and non-SARS-CoV-2 related coronavirus are going to produce only mild respiratory infections, whereas influenza has the propensity to cause severe respiratory infections. Respiratory syncytial virus also can cause severe infections. Parainfluenza can cause severe infections. Adenovirus, metapneumovirus, especially SARS-CoV-2, all of them can cause severe respiratory infections. I'm not saying always they're going to cause severe infections, but they have the tendency or potency to cause severe infections. They're very much potential. So it's going to spread via respiratory droplet. Most of the viruses spread like that, and patients can be asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic, and they can just keep transmitting the viruses without having any symptoms. And incubation period is approximately to 14 days. For most cases, especially SARS-CoV-2 is going to have a median of around 5 days. And, severe infections can occur in young patients, older patients. Young means you're talking about very young patients, very old patients, immunocompromised, comorbid conditions like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, or chronic structural lung disease like COPD, bronchiectasis, cystic fibrosis. These patients are at high risk of getting a severe infection, and they're at high risk of death as well. We all know that. And what are the signs and symptoms? Patients are going to have fever, cough, myalgias, dyspnea, sore throat, rhinorrhea, and severe cases are going to have pneumonia and ARDS. But fortunately, 80% of these infections are going to have a mild course only, where you just get fever, cough, myalgias, nothing more than that. But some cases, unfortunately, 5-10% cases might get very severe disease, and they can progress to severe pneumonia and ARDS. And remember, whenever there is rapidly progressing symptoms, like especially when there is a drop in saturation, persistent cough, patient is becoming really, really sick with increasing respiratory rate, always think in terms of severe viral pathogens. Okay. So coming to influenza. So what are the strains that are important? We have H1N1 that caused the world to shatter in 1918, caused so much of deaths in 1918, especially during the First World War. And H3N2 1968, H5N1 with poultry exposure, and H7N1 avian flu, and H7N1 caused widespread conjunctivitis in the world. So we have so many pandemics happened in the world in the past. So we are always worried about influenza. Like any society, if you take CDC, WHO, everyone is worried about influenza. So it's going to produce simple issues like fever, cough, myalgias, not really important. So only in those patients who are having comorbid conditions like chronic lung disease or diabetes or cardiovascular problems, it's going to become serious. Or in pregnant women, it can become serious. That's it. Apart from that, it's going to produce only mild illness, but it has the potential to produce major problems, especially in the setting of a pandemic. Even though the proportion of cases may be less, but if you look at the sheer number of cases, because it's going to affect everyone in the community, if you see the sheer number of cases, you're going to see a lot of cases. So especially in the pandemic and epidemic states. So investigation of choice is, of course, RT-PCR, which has a sensitivity and specificity of more than 95%. This is what is preferred in hospitalized individuals. But for outpatient purposes, rapid molecular testing is going to be more than enough, which has a poor sensitivity of 50 to 70%. I mean, it depends on the kit, of course, but 50 to 70% is going to be the sensitivity for most of these kits. Coming to respiratory syncytial virus, it's going to produce bronchiolitis, pneumonia in immunocompromised individuals, infants and in elderly. And we have parainfluenza, which is going to produce a condition called croup, or sometimes in extremely immunocompromised individuals, it can produce LRTI. And what about adenovirus? Adenovirus is going to predominantly present with URI, sometimes GI illness and conjunctivitis, but it can produce severe problems in transplant individuals. We know that. And human metapneumovirus, it's going to again present with URI only, but if the patient is immunocompromised, it's going to produce pneumonia. And again, coronavirus, it can produce mild URI, especially if it's a non-SARS related infection. But in SARS, MERS, you can have severe disease depending again on the background comorbid conditions. So during seasonal epidemics, influenza testing is critical in high-risk populations, especially those who are immunocompromised or those patients who are having comorbid conditions. So it can tell you how much it's progressing in the community. Even for epidemiological purposes, this becomes very, very important. So ultimately, the take-home message is very, very simple. Pregnant patient, think about high risk. Immunocompromised, high risk. Patients who are having chronic problems like CV problems or structural lung disease, those patients are at high risk. CKD patients, high risk. uncontrolled diabetes, high risk, on steroids, high risk. So you know which group of patients are going to be at high risk and which group of patients are not at high risk. If the patient is at high risk, you have to monitor them even more closely because they are the ones who are at risk of developing severe infection. So what's going to be the treatment? So for influenza, you're going to use Oseltamivir 75 milligram BD for 5 days. That's standard treatment. Or you can use Parainfluenza or you can use Baloxavir. If you're using most of the influenza treatment is going to be effective if you're going to use within 48 hours. And Baloxavir is something that cannot be used for severe cases, and that's very important point. But the advantage of Baloxavir is a single dose treatment. That's the advantage of Baloxavir. And if it's respiratory syncytial virus, you can give inhaled ribavirin, but it's very controversial because it is indicated as of now only in immunosuppressed people. And you can use something called as Palivizumab, and it's used for prevention, and you have to do good case selection for this. Otherwise, don't use it. It's very costly. For adenovirus, you can try Cidofovir if the infection is severe. Otherwise, it's only supportive care again. So currently, we use something called as respiratory viral panel. So that covers almost all the viruses. You just take a swab, send for PCR. We have a lab in our hospital that gives the list of what all the viruses that's come out. I mean, it's going to be positive. But unfortunately, this has a very poor specificity, but has a very good sensitivity. So you can do influenza RT-PCR, which has a very good sensitivity and specificity. And you can do rapid molecular assays as well. Chest X-ray is going to show non-specific findings like bilateral opacity, which are not very important, and CT scan can be done to look out for complications. Otherwise, it's not required. Here's a case beginning. So this patient is presenting with high fever, dry cough, myalgia, and progressive shortness of breath, which is very much suggestive of influenza. Patient is having patient is a known case of COPD as well. He's unvaccinated for influenza. So now you're seeing vitals are a bit shaky here. Patient is having a tachycardia, respiratory rate is slightly higher, more than 20. SATs are dropping 90, that too with 2 liters oxygen. So something is very bad here. And chest X-ray did show bilateral infiltrates. Rapid influenza test is negative, but RT-PCR confirms influenza because it has a high sensitivity. WBC counts 12,000. Sometimes it can occur. Procalcitonin more than 0.5 is what is going to suggest a bacterial infection, but its here is only 0.3. So it suggests of viral infection. He is admitted to the ward. He's been started with Oseltamivir 75 milligram 2 times a day. And we are going to give for 5 days. That's a standard dose. Sometimes in patients who are very sick, we are going to give steroids, just like COVID. So in influenza patients also, dexamethasone does work. That's why in severe community-acquired pneumonia, you can give dexamethasone or any steroid that's going to improve the outcomes. So it's actually a guideline-based recommendation, not my recommendation. So this is a confirmed influenza in a high-risk patient, 65 plus COPD diabetes. That's a comorbid condition in this patient with recent symptom onset, really warranting Oseltamivir because patient is presenting like within 3 days, right? So if the patient is having severe issues or presenting within 48 hours, the effect of Oseltamivir is going to be very much higher. So this patient will have a good effect with regards to Oseltamivir. And negative rapid antigen testing is likely to be false because it has a lower sensitivity, but RT-PCR is more sensitive. We know that. Low procalcitonin less than 0.5 suggests viral etiology in this case, and bilateral infiltrates indicate potential progression, and dexamethasone is typically reserved for worsening hypoxia. As I said, it can be used in severe community-acquired pneumonia also.